some of the permissions, some of the soft counters.
Actually, yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, game one is the only time I actually want to see Thalia, maybe to deal with the dazes and the forces and the standstill and all that. Standstill actually seems like, I don't know, I better have an Aether Vial turn one, right?
Yeah, correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you see Dana Drew on the left here. He was, he's our first overall seed. We saw him in the previous round pull out a squeaker against Ad Nauseam Tendrils to earn his top 8 berth and first overall seed. Kane Duggar was made it as the 8th seed on Breakers, barely edging out Steve Wise.
All right, so we're underway here. We have turn 1 Curse Catcher. Not the greatest against the Goblin deck, but it can stop, let's see, what spells do we have here? Actually, just nothing. Tarfire. 2 Tarfire. It does block a Goblin Lackey, though, pretty well.
And this is, if you want to see any start here that typifies the disadvantage that Merfolk is at in this matchup, is turn 1 Curse Catcher with basically no utility versus turn 1 Cavern of Souls, shutting off all permission into Goblin Lackey, which pretty much ends the game if it connects once. So.
Right, exactly. Lord Atlantis pretty much presents a wall that is a force to be reckoned with. If Kenny has a Mountain and a Tarfire here, he does have Sting Scourger, though. So this is going to go back to his hand at worst. Man, this is going to be a fun turn here. I see Aether Vial. Does he have Aether Vial? I see Thalia. I see another kind of whitish, colorless looking thing. It could be another Thalia, or it could be an Aether Vial. Then I see a Matron. I see a Sting Scourger. It's funny, whenever you see a decent Goblin printed, they always go into the Legacy Goblin deck. A Sting Scourger, fairly recent Goblin. You have Krenko, usually a one of here and there. We saw Kiki Jiki temporarily. I don't think he's playing any of those. That kind of went away with the win there. Looking at his list real quick. But no, I think all these Goblins have these cool abilities, and that's why Matron's so good. The old demonic tutor for a creature Goblin here.
So the Lackey's going to connect. He announces the trigger. That is going to put a... He appears to be thumbing around a War Marshal and a Matron. He's a little choked on mana right now, so he can't go fully ballistic with this Lackey, but obviously it's a huge edge.
Right. What do you think about getting maybe a Gem Palm Incinerator here?
I like getting Gem Palm a lot. I think there's some merit to getting Goblin Pile Driver.
Yeah, I mean, it's Pro Blue. It's kind of hard to say no. You have a Cavern of Souls, too.
Yeah.
He's probably right. It's obviously, we love the cycling ability of that, so you have 2 chances to draw a land to get your 3rd land. There's definitely a lot of advantages to that. Because we're obviously not paying our mana here for Sting Scourger.
So
Wasteland.
Wasteland on Cavern, very important for Dana. Allows him to potentially turn a little bit of his permission back online.
We have the Tarfire too, so maybe Tarfire here will be used. If you don't draw a land there, Daze can stop it in its tracks. So let's see. No land. So we're going to, I think you have to try. No, well, if he Tarfires, he can sacrifice the Curse Catcher and counter it now because he doesn't have the land to pay for it. He already had an Incinerator. I think that is a... Yeah, he's going to have to just play a Lackey, and he's just going to have to pass turn.
Yeah, I like playing the other Lackey here. As long as you draw a second land sometime in the reasonable near future. Silver Gill Adept will reveal Lord of Atlantis. Then you can Gem Palm Incinerator away the Lord, and then start taking the game over from there.
Yeah, when we talked about Goblins having a definite advantage here, that's assuming the Goblin player has more than 1 land in play. At this point, he's going to need to rip a land here and then get right back in this game. And he does not as a Goblin ringleader. I like the attack with Curse Catcher because pretty much he would have to sack it. You saw the deck list. If he does have Tarfire, then he has to sack it anyway, so you might as well get it in there. And it still leaves Dana back with 2 blockers for both Goblin Lackeys. I think he's going to do it. I mean, he don't really have another play. Even better, he gets to use that Spell Pierce, which is definitely a dead card later in this matchup.
Yep. Another second Mutavault from Dana. This is really nice for him. It's going to allow him to apply a lot of pressure here. Ooh. He has a second Lord of Atlantis to the Lord. That Mutavault is now 4/4. He gets to come crashing in for quite a bit of damage. So,
this is what we call the old aggro smash back home here. It's pretty much. I have a lot of huge creatures. You don't. It's just pretty much an impossible mountain to climb with 1 land. If this isn't a land, it's definitely going to be going to game 2 here.
Yep, and that's not it. And
we're probably going to pack it up. And even if that was a land, pretty grim anyway. Kills the Lord of Atlantis and then faces down multiple 3/3 Mutavaults. All right, so to the sideboard.
Yeah, no fuss, no muss there. Dana off to just got no explosive side. Got to pin him down with Wasteland and pretty easy driving from there. So we have some premium to give away, as we do during the elimination rounds here.
Yep.
We give away 3 months in the quarter, 6 months in the semis, and a full year in the finals. We ask a trivia question. We need you to tweet that answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium, and one person of the correct responders will be chosen at random for 3 free months of premium. That question is, both Kenny Duggar and Dana Drew are playing tribal decks. They each have a 4 of artifact in their main deck to facilitate getting their creatures to play faster. So for 3 months of premium, name that artifact. Again, tweet that answer to at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium.
Coat of Arms, I mean, that's what I played when I played Goblins when I was about 11 or 12.
It is potent in decks with a lot of the same tribe.
Yeah,
I wouldn't fault anyone for having some Coat of Arms.
Yeah, I love that card. It's still a $10 card for a reason.
And very popular.
Yeah.
Very popular. So,
Auto overrun.
looking at the sideboard here, Kenny has 3 copies of Pyrokinesis that he can bring in here. That's the red Force of Will from Alliances.
Yeah.
Splits up 4 damage as an alternate cost, which is very valuable for a number of reasons. It's an instant speed removal spell. Dana's probably cutting a lot of his permission, and so it's likely to resolve. And the fact that Kenny is likely to be ahead on cards because of Goblin Matron and Goblin Ringleader. If Dana has any advantage in the matchup, it's efficiency to the ground. So being able to break that up, Kenny would gladly pay 2 cards out of his hand to potentially kill 2 creatures and do it for no mana while he can develop the rest of his board.
And to Dana's side, we have an interesting sideboard situation here. Cards that have to come out, I imagine, Standstill, all 3 of them. Force of Will, definitely. And then even Spell Pierce is even worse than Force of Will. So that leaves us with Daze in the main. Let's see how many cards that is. There's 9 cards that are auto board out. Does he even have 9 cards, let alone 12 cards with Daze to bring out? He can bring in his Echoing Truce ×2. He can bring in Sower of Temptation. He can bring in Umazawa's Jute, so that's 4 cards. I think he brings in 3 Tidebender Mage. It doesn't tap anything that's really relevant, but it's still a 2/3 for 2. Pretty big, right? It can tap at least something he plays.
Yeah.
Not the pile driver, what everyone's scared of, but Tidebender Mage is definitely, I don't even know if it's in the sideboard for this matchup, but hey, it's going to be pretty good here.
Yeah, I would imagine it's more for Tarmogoyf mid-range decks, but
Right.
It's going to be totally fine here. I actually think that he wants to keep in Force of Will because, again, his advantage in the matchup is how fast he is to the ground. I don't think he can win a long game, and so
Right.
he has to, get a quick clock and counter a key spell. I think
Because
is
he
a
had 4
reasonable play.
Caverns in the Goblin deck. I know he plays at
There
least.
are 4 caverns.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm worried about. He has 7. Well, that's 7 cards he's definitely boarding in. So he could leave in hypothetically 2 Force Will. Do you like Force Will over Daze?
Yes.
Okay, so then
do.
we're boarding out Daze then. So we're boarding out 3 Daze, 2 Spell Pierces 5, 3 Standstills 8. We're bringing in 7, and for our 8th card, we can bring in a Lawan blocker of Cephalid Empressness. Or do we leave in 1 Daze here? Probably leave in 1 Daze.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. But
Yes, there's no real other sideboard he can bring in. I mean, Spell Pierce has to go. Standstill has to go, I think.
Yeah. So already off to a quick start here. The players sideboarded very quickly. You see a lackey here from Kenny, which is met by Force of Will. Over in our 3-6 bracket, as Wasteland meets the Rashad Port, Dustin, our Reanimator player, is taking game 1 over Alex Tension.
Okay. Let's just as predicted here, Dustin has a monstrous matchup playing a deck that is just pretty much fine-tuned to beat Bug, and that's in Reanimator. We'll see if we're going to pull an upset there.
Somewhat incredible that apparently game 1 of our Ad Nauseam Tendrils Mirror is still going on.
I guess maybe they're ritualing back and forth. Maybe they expent everything they had and did not get there. You never know.
So Mod War Marshal enters play.
That card is pretty good in this matchup. I think it gives you a good amount of goblins for 1 card. Lets you Gem Palm Incinerator, which he's holding now. Pretty much kill anything that Dana plays without a Lord here. I like Kenny's start here, mainly because he has lands. He can play his spells. And he's holding, I think, a Ringleader, Incinerator, and another Goblin to the left. All those cards are so good. Dana's Merfolk are pretty linear. They just make the other Merfolk bigger, where Kenny's Goblins all do crazy things.
Yeah. And this is a much better pacing. Again, Dana, I do not think can win a long game because of all of Kenny's synergies and card advantage. So
I think the Tarfire is kind of a funny card. It seems like a card where I would be scared to play because of Tarmogoyf. It just makes it bigger, but I mean, having the tribal ability Goblin, might be enough to make it go in your direction.
And
it's a
furthermore,
sorcery as well.
I think that Goblins often against Tarmogoyf is trying to just overwhelm the board with so much stuff that
Do you
they're
think
not
it's better
worried
than
about.
Lightning Bolt in this situation?
I think the fact that you can find it with a Matron is a big deal.
So he plays 2, so yeah, maybe I would play 1, but then again, what do I know about goblins?
He's going to block, turn on
He's going to try to block, and I think he's going to cycle in response before blockers. Hopefully, if he's going to repeal here, even though he's going to repeal the goblin.
He's going to repeal the token in response, which is awesome. That will allow the factory to pump itself and save itself. This is going to induce a Tarfire.
Right, Tarfire incoming.
And now Dana has decided this is worth a Force of Will.
I can't imagine it being worth a Force Will, especially because Kenny doesn't have a Cavern yet, and we know he has Ringleader, and Dana knows he has Ringleaders. That's the card. That's the dream there. No Cavern? Oh, Ringleader, the only card that pretty much can refill your hand at this point. Get him. All right, so Dana is going to. He's talking about. They're having a discussion about. Yeah, here we're figuring out what's happening here. He tried to pump Tarfire in response. It resolves. That's it.
Yep. So a little fireworks, but not a lot of action.
Right. I think he's got Pyrokinesis in his hand. He has a red spell in his hand.
And Dana's apparently brought in the one Solar Temptation. So.
Oh yeah, I agree with that play because it's just there's not much removal in Kenny's that there is, but he needs to use it early on, and that's a nice little end game cap there.
And he has a lot of as we said before, he's got a lot of crap in his deck too. So.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to dig out all this junk here, so you have to bring in something. Another Wasteland off the top here against the Plateau.
Phantasmal Image copying a Bog War Marshal.
I'm not gonna lie, I've seen that done not in this format. I've seen it done in different, more casual formats, but it's fun little creature interaction. You don't have this in other Legacy decks. These are definitely decks that are underpowered against each other, but definitely put a heck of a clock on those combo decks.
Yeah. So he's gonna pay the Echo on the War Marshal.
We are now into Attrition. That is a split card drawn.
He's brought in Wear Tear, probably to fight over Aether Vial, and perhaps the Umazawa Jitte as well. That's one of Dana's real haymakers in the matchup.
Yes, I mean, we all know what Jitte does in these creature matchup decks. It's not a fun deck when you're on the receiving end of that. So those 2 Wastelands have kept Kenny off double, now second Ringleader. That's huge.
Yeah, that board is not a mistake. Those are actual goblins on Dana's side after he Phantasmal Imaged a Mog War Marshal, rather.
Pretty entertaining. Here comes the Solar Temptation.
That is the anemic quality of this match continues. We have so much.
I like Dana's haste playing it. Like this is just the. I wanted to. It would have been funny if he windmill slammed it on the table and just jacked the 1/1 Mog War Marshal there. And we're gonna bring it on the screen and show you. Yes. Pretty fragile against the red decks. But
before anyone who's tuning in asks, yes, this is a Legacy top 8.
This is not a cube draft. We're in full Legacy mode right now. We have decks that kill on turn 1, the table away, and here we have the Merfolk versus the Goblins.
So the Goblin Matron resolves. That's going to go get Pile Driver.
I like it. Kenny is just itching for one more land. Yeah. If he draws Caverns, that's obviously the best possible draw he can handle here. But he's not in a hurry. Obviously, he's at 18. He has a Sower on board and his stolen War Marshal. He's holding Pyrokinesis, so he can actually kill it.
5 mana. There's a hard cast Silvergill Adept.
This has been a heck of a game.
This is.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that's in play now for 5 mana. With the trigger on the stack, it appears that we're going to try to Pyrokinesis away.
And it will answer with Force of Will. And then we're going to do it again. Do you remove the Pile Driver here?
I would
keep the Ringleader.
At this point,
I would keep the Ringleader.
He's debating between a Pile Driver and Ringleader.
There we go. That's what I would do too. It's risky, but if you draw a Goblin, you get to play it. If you draw a land, then you are in the driver's seat. So he gets his Mog War Marshal back, and he draws up the Silvergill. Let's see if a land comes, which will be a huge draw for him, and that is a War Chief. Good enough. Like we said.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah, if you don't draw a land, you're drawing Goblins, right? Yeah. So.
And the first play of the match from either player that resembles anything powerful.
Right.
Tribal Lore to complement 2 Goblins and an attack for 6.
Yep. Pretty powerful here. Pyrokinesis is a really sweet card that Goblins added pretty much in its conception here back in Legacy, and it's been played for a while. It reminds me of the Fire Blast for goblins. It's a last-ditch effort to kill a bunch of creatures. You can hit a lot of different things that are problematic for you. And even in this matchup, think how many creatures you can kill. You can target a Phantasmal Image, kill a Merfolk Lord, kill another Merfolk, all with one card. It's pretty good.
I'm not quite sure what the discrepancy is here right now with that Log War Marshal. It was pretty clear. Oh, there was a question on Echo.
Oh, yeah. Obviously,
I think
with
it's the turn. I think Echo is worded the turn.
It comes into play under your control.
Or the turn after.
I think you have to pay Echo. I remember. Only reason I know this is because on Magic Online I've treacheryed a deranged hermit and I had to pay Echo next turn. Yeah. So I mean, it's just you have to do it.
Back during my mono blue days in Urza Saga Masks Type 2, I had a Slippery Karst in my mono blue deck, so if I treacheryed an albino troll, I could pay the Echo.
I have no idea what that card is. I know albino troll.
Green cycling land from Saga.
Oh yeah. I know albino troll. Yeah. Gotcha. Hey, that's something.
Oh yeah, I went deep on that deck. This is before I found my inner me.
It's kind of like
I was thieving magpie people every Friday night.
if you had a vivid land, do you play the Esh Oracle when you're already 3-color if you have one vivid land?
Yeah, that's not close.
Yeah.
That's not even a question. I don't even know.
All right,
that's a question.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I guess we're just we're happy with a 3/3/4. I guess.
Yeah. Echo is a little bit non-intuitive because you're used to cards being like, okay, I've paid the additional cost. Now it's just a thing in play.
Right.
But
yeah.
Echo re-triggers if ownership of the card changes.
Yeah.
And so they're figuring out exactly how to rule the situation.
Have a little discussion here. Why not? Make sure everything is in order.
I somehow feel it's unlikely that the Echo, one way or the other, on this War Marshal is going to be too relevant in the way that this game plays out. But again, better to get it right than to not.
Right. I would even go as far as say irrelevant here. So he's going to have a token instead. We fixed the state here. War Marshal is dead. Nothing really happened in order for us not to be able to rewind here because Dana obviously was tapped out. Pretty simplistic. He does not get to take attack with the token though. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Or maybe damage resolved and then they just put the token in play. Right. That seems like what happened because Dana's life dropped from a higher life total than I thought.
Yeah, it's being rolled as a missed trigger. So
we have Lord of Atlantis, and we have a repeal, I believe.
Yep.
I think Dana is in a world of trouble here. And as an Aether Vial, probably the worst card he could possibly draw at this point. Yeah, Mountain would be better, and Creature would be better. But all right,
debating whether or not he is willing to send in his Chieftain.
I think he's sending it in here.
I mean, he can afford it. He can definitely afford to trade 1-for-1 this way with the Ringleader.
Right, yeah, I don't mind, yeah. I mean, this is a good block here. I think Lord of Atlantis just jumps in front of that, oh no. So that means he must have drawn another Lord, because he's going to attempt to get to 3/3 status, which is going to be hard for Kenny to deal with.
Yep.
That's the only explanation I can think of, and he did draw another Lord.
It's a Master of the Pearl Trident.
Yep. Good old extra Lord for the Legacy players, and that is a Wasteland, and we finally have drawn our land to be able to play Ringleader. He's been waiting for so long, and here we go.
Goblin. That's a Goblin too.
Man.
And that's awesome.
That's Goblin. Goblin enough.
Could you have gotten Lightning Bolt off of that?
Yeah, I think so. I just put it in my hand. It's red, right? I don't know what Ringleader does. Puts 4 red cards in your hand? No, okay, same thing. All right, so we have, man, this is a good board state for Kenny now. It's funny how Ringleader can just make a fair board state become unfair in like a blink of an eye.
Yeah, definitely once if Goblins has the time to do its thing, and it often doesn't get to do that in Legacy because of just the nature of the format.
Right.
But when it has the time to actually get its synergies online, in creature-on-creature matchups, it's probably the most powerful deck in the format. It's really hard to match it pound for pound.
Do you remember back in the day in Standard when Patriarch's bidding was around with Goblin bidding?
Yes.
That outclassed all the other creature decks, Zombie bidding, all the other ones, because Goblins, Sharpshooter, things like that are just too good. They're too good compared to the creature combat that happens here. So he forgot Aether Vial, and now he remembers.
Well, it's not necessarily, he may not want to.
He kind of shrugged and put the dice on top. I think he missed it there. But he has things that don't need Goblins right here, or Aether Vial counters. And take your time. I think we are in cycle mode here. I don't think we're casting Hasted Goblins here. He's at 4. I think I cycle once to see what that last card in Dana's hand is. At worst, it's a well, here he used 2 repills, right?
Yeah.
He is out of repeals. It could be an Echoing Truth, which would be the only backfiring thing here. All right, so Tarfire, I like this play first. He's going to deal 2 damage to a 4/4. Now he's going to try to cycle here. I think he should have left a Mountain up instead. He is now doing that. Okay, so dead. Now we're going to draw a card here. If it's another land, we are definitely killing something else. All right, be careful here. 3/3s.
Yeah, this forces a block, so...
You can tell that Kenny's not exactly familiar with a lot of creature-on-creature here because he's just ready to attack. Against most of the decks, like you said, you don't have time to develop Goblin board states. You're just do attack, you know?
Yeah. But Kenny just wants to be careful here. He's got such a commanding position, and because of the Gem Palm Incinerators versus the Lords, if he slips up at one point here, just not counting right or missing a point, then it's really dangerous. So better to err on the side of taking your time.
Yeah, he Wastelands here, which disallows him to... Did he draw a War Chief? I think he drew a War Chief.
And that's a concession.
He's at 4. There's just nothing.
Underneath a barrage of Gem Palm Incinerators, and Dana's draw was much more reactive that game. He had, a lot of permission, no way to really develop a clock, and he really needs to get on the front foot against Goblins. Because as we saw there, once, he got to Ringleader into 3 removal spells, 2 which cantrip. He can't win a game that's going to turn 20. He needs to compress the game, and that involves having an early clock. But he'll be on the play for game 3, and with an explosive enough start. We saw him steal in the first game with a mixture of a very fast start and a critical wasteland, and Kenny being a little mana light. So
exactly, and I think in this dynamic, it's kind of crazy. Merfolk has to be the aggressor here because in the late game, as we saw, the Goblins are just way too synergistic. And if you're drawing Ringleaders, there's no real Ringleader Merfolk to enable you just to avalanche and card advantage. Silver Gale Adept is your only way to produce card advantage. So Kenny later in the game, if he's Ringleadering, which is cheaper from a War Chief, if he even has that out, or an Aether Vial on 4, into another Ringleader, things are going to get crazy. So Dana needs to make sure he can do what he can with Mana Denial, Wastelands, and effective use of just jamming those Lords out as fast as possible.
Yep, and Force of Will too. I mean,
They forced Lackey that game, which was pretty intense. It's pretty good.
The Goblin deck is definitely capable of getting these lopsided draws where it's a little slow out of the gates, or there's one piece of the puzzle it's really leaning on. If there's any edge that Merfolk has, it's definitely way more redundancy in what its core game plan is. All it's trying to do is grow its guys. There's nothing too fancy going on here. The Goblin deck goes way higher up the curve. It has a lot more finicky sort of synergies, and that leads to hands that can be broken up a lot more easily by one Force of Will, one Wasteland in the critical juncture, what have you. So
yeah, there's definitely it's pretty much like landmines in the way for Merfolk. A turn 1 Lackey must be stopped. But as you saw in game 1, even though he's a little mana light, once you get a couple 3/3s out, those Lackeys are never connecting. So then that goes game plan 1 out the window. Now Goblins has to rely on cycling Gem Palm Incinerator after getting a critical mass of Goblins and use of Tarfire. If that game plan fails, then he also has a Ringleader. So Dana can close out the game in any of those phases with enough pressure on the board, I think.
And to me, what's the fulcrum, the balancing part of the match is Kenny's removal, whether it be Gem Palm Incinerator or Tarfire, against Dana's ability to outpace that stuff with his Lords. I think part of the reason the matchup gets better for Kenny after a board is Pyrokinesis can totally shift that.
Oh, yeah. Whew, what a good card. And we talked about Dana. He has to leave in a couple stinkers here because he doesn't have enough to sideboard. For God's sake, he played a Sower on turn 4, or for 4 mana. That stole a Goblin War Marshal. That's definitely not optimal.
Turn 1 Island.
See a Lackey. Does he have the Cavern of Souls?
I don't think anyone's opened with Vial yet.
I don't think so either. Oh, but here it is. And this is going to get Force of Willed.
And I like this a lot from Kenny. If he gets Force of Willed, that's great. Now your Lackey's live. If it doesn't get Force, that's great too. So.
What do you think about, we have a Dana on the play, now with 3 cards left in hand, Kenny's almost full grip, and I see lands and spells. I think it's going to get pretty rough here.
Yeah, again, that's a Goblin Pile Driver, which is a nightmare for Dana.
Right. Oh, man.
Now he has a moat in play. He can spend all the time in the world developing his board, and then he can start getting his Gem Palm Incinerator, Tarfire, Pyrokinesis stuff going.
Yeah, and he just drew a 3rd land. That is a insane draw. I just realized he only had the 2 land. Oh, no, he had a Wasteland. All right, so he had the 3rd land anyway. That's pretty good.
Oh, and there's the 2nd Pile Driver. And a Wasteland.
I don't like this Wasteland at all. Because even though the Mutavault can get through, here's the reason. He doesn't have another land after that besides the mountain here, and he has Ringleader. I think after I get to my 4th land, then I'm comfortable with taking a little bit of mana away from Dana.
I think this play is probably fine.
I don't think 1 damage is worth. He could have played a Ringleader this turn. That's my only concern.
Well, he's gonna. I mean, this turn is so explosive. He gets to get a 3rd Goblin into play, and then
Cycle here, yeah.
cycle and Incinerator.
Repeal.
And this is
Repeal can't save him because he doesn't have 2 open. Works out pretty well for him. All right, so he's going to attack for a bajillion here, and this just shows you the Goblin deck has just too much synergy, and for no reason, pro blue on those pile drivers makes Dana's life pretty miserable here.
yeah.
So he's going to get in there with an image. Lord of Atlantis, he has a colorless factory down at the bottom, not a merfolk. However, we're going to see a wasteland take it out.
Factory.
He drew a plateau, so again, he's drawn enough land where that last card in his hand is a wear and tear, and a Ringleader, and a 4th land. Pretty good. Pretty good.
So
It doesn't really get better for Kenny at this point.
Yeah. And he basically got to play 2-mana Emrakuls this game.
Pretty much, yeah. 2-mana Emrakul, and he also, the Force turn 1 again from Dana, it really is, it's killer because you need literal every card, and Kenny doesn't have any fat in his deck like that. What's the worst card Kenny can draw? Pyrokinesis is a sideboard card, and then that's absurd. Or some goblins, you know?
Aether Vials.
Aether Vial is probably the worst card, yeah, and they both have those. So think about Dana's potential dead draws here. I think Kenny is going to need to really punt this one in order to lose this one. Because we know for a fact... Alright, so this, the Echo Intruder says, just, yeah. Dana knows the writing's on the wall. Goblins has other tribal people's numbers. It has too much synergy with each other when the other tribal decks really don't have much. Elves have a lot of mana involved. Merfolk get pretty big and have Island Walk. Goblins, they do everything.
Protection from blue, still good against mono blue creature decks.
We learned that too. Even if there's powders in that pro blue, I think, what do you think? I think he still
He's probably still ahead long term, but instead there was nothing Dana could do in his 75.
Right. So. We need some blue removal spells, some Psionic Blast.
So Kenny will be moving